In the shadow of Adolf Hitler, the dictator who plunged the world into war and terror, there existed a group of individuals who managed his daily life. These were the people who cooked his meals, cleaned his quarters, and handled his domestic affairs. But who were they, and what became of them after the collapse of the Third Reich? Today, we delve into the lives of Hitler's personal staff, exploring their roles during the war and their fates once the Reich crumbled. Adolf Hitler, the Führer of Nazi Germany, was surrounded by a small but dedicated group of staff who attended to his every need. From valets to cooks, these individuals were intimately involved in his personal life, witnessing history from a perspective few others did. They were not just servants, they were influential figures within the Nazi regime. Let's start by meeting Karl Wilhelm Krause, the man who was responsible for Hitler's personal care from 1934 to 1939. Krause, like many others in Hitler's inner circle, wielded significant influence, shaping the daily life and decisions of the Führer. Karl Wilhelm Krause was born in 1911 in Germany. Before joining Hitler's staff, he worked in various roles, gaining experience that would later serve him well as a valet. Krause served as Hitler's personal valet during the early years of the Nazi regime. As Hitler's valet, Krause was responsible for his wardrobe, helping him dress, and attending to his daily routine. His duties included ensuring Hitler's clothes were immaculate, preparing his meals, and managing his personal schedule. However, in 1939, Krause was dismissed from his position, allegedly due to a disagreement over how to care for Hitler's clothes. Krause's departure was timely, as he avoided the intense scrutiny and danger that came with being close to Hitler during the later, more desperate years of the war. After the war, Krause lived a relatively quiet life. He wrote a memoir about his experiences titled 10 Years with Hitler, providing a unique perspective on the inner workings of the Nazi regime. He passed away in 2001, having lived a life marked by his brief but significant connection to one of history's most infamous figures. Heinz Linge took over as Hitler's valet after Krause's departure and remained in that role until the Führer's final days in the Berlin bunker. Linge was fiercely loyal, overseeing every aspect of Hitler's personal life, including his daily meals and even his final moments. His unwavering dedication was evident in the meticulous care he took in managing Hitler's daily routines and personal affairs. On April 30th, 1945, Linge was one of the last people to see Hitler alive, tasked with the grim duty of burning Hitler and Eva Braun's bodies after their suicides. This act was a testament to his loyalty, as he carried out Hitler's final orders even in the face of imminent defeat. Captured by Soviet forces after the fall of Berlin, Linge spent 10 years in Soviet captivity, enduring harsh conditions before being released in 1955. His time in captivity was marked by intense interrogations and a struggle for survival. He returned to Germany and later published his memoirs, detailing his time in Hitler's service. These memoirs provided a rare glimpse into the inner workings of Hitler's daily life and the final days of the Third Reich. Linge's life after the war was marked by a quiet existence, a stark contrast to the dramatic and destructive years he spent in the Führer's inner circle. He lived a life of relative obscurity, reflecting on his past and the turbulent times he had witnessed. He died in 1980, leaving behind a complex legacy intertwined with one of history's most infamous figures. Constanze Manziarly was a dietitian responsible for ensuring Hitler's strict vegetarian regimen was adhered to. She joined Hitler's inner circle in 1943 and quickly became a trusted member of his personal staff. As the war drew to a close, Manziarly remained by Hitler's side in the Führer bunker, preparing his meals and maintaining his dietary needs. However, her story takes a mysterious turn in the chaotic aftermath of Berlin's fall. On May 2, 1945, after Hitler's death, Manziarly attempted to escape Berlin disguised as a Red Cross worker. She was last seen in the company of Soviet soldiers and then mysteriously disappeared. Some theories suggest she was killed shortly after her capture, while others speculate she might have assumed a new identity. Her fate remains unknown, adding a layer of enigma to the end of her story. Anni Winter served as Hitler's housekeeper, meticulously managing his domestic quarters. Her responsibilities included overseeing the cleaning, organizing, and maintenance of both the Berghof and the Reich Chancellery. Winter ensured that everything was in perfect order, catering to Hitler's specific preferences and routines. Despite her close proximity to the Nazi leadership, Winter's personal views on the regime remain largely undocumented. After the war, Winter faced the harsh reality of being associated with the Nazi leadership. She was briefly detained and interrogated by Allied forces, but was released without any significant punishment. Winter lived out the rest of her life in relative obscurity, passing away in 1970. Johanna Wolf was one of Hitler's longest-serving secretaries, joining his staff in the 1920s and remaining by his side until the very end. She managed his daily schedule, correspondence, and was fiercely loyal to him. Wolf was known for her unwavering dedication and was often seen as a confidant to Hitler. Wolf was present in the Führer bunker during the final days of the war. After Hitler's death, she attempted to flee but was captured by Allied forces. Interrogated and held as a prisoner for a time, she was eventually released and lived a quiet life in Munich until her death in 1985. Unlike many of her colleagues, she rarely spoke of her experiences after the war. Her loyalty to Hitler remained a defining aspect of her life, even in her later years. Fritz Darges served as an adjutant to Hitler, assisting him with his daily affairs and ensuring smooth communication within the Nazi hierarchy. His role involved liaising with other Nazi officials, coordinating meetings, and managing Hitler's schedule. Darges was dismissed in 1944 after an incident during a meeting. Hitler, reportedly angered by a fly buzzing around, made a sarcastic comment suggesting Darges should deal with it. When Darges responded in kind, Hitler was infuriated and dismissed him on the spot. Following his dismissal, Darges returned to the SS and served on the Eastern Front, participating in several key battles until the end of the war. Captured by American forces, Darges spent several years in a POW camp. During his imprisonment, he reflected on his time in the Nazi regime. After his release, he lived a quiet post-war life, rarely discussing his time with Hitler. He avoided the public eye and passed away in 2009, leaving behind a complex legacy. Christa Schroeder was another of Hitler's personal secretaries, known for her efficient handling of his correspondence and her quiet loyalty. She worked closely with Hitler until the final days in the Führer bunker, witnessing the collapse of the Nazi regime firsthand. Captured by American forces after the fall of Berlin, Schroeder was interrogated about her knowledge of Hitler and the inner workings of the Nazi regime. She provided detailed accounts of the Führer's behavior and the atmosphere within the bunker. Released in the 1950s, Schroeder later published a memoir, giving a rare glimpse into Hitler's daily life and her own survival during the war. Her reflections on the regime were complex as she grappled with her role in history. Schroeder lived until 1984, spending her post-war years in relative obscurity, often reflecting on the tumultuous years she spent in Hitler's inner circle. Pauline Kohler worked as a housemaid in Hitler's residences, ensuring that his quarters were clean and orderly. Her duties included cleaning, organizing, and maintaining the private quarters of Hitler and his close associates. Kohler observed many aspects of Hitler's private life, witnessing his routines and interactions with his inner circle. Little is known about Kohler's life after the war. Like many who served in domestic roles within the Nazi regime, she likely faced a difficult adjustment to life in post-war Germany. The lack of public records suggests she lived out her life away from the public eye. Erna Flegel was a dedicated nurse who tended to the needs of Hitler's inner circle in the Führer bunker during the final days of the Third Reich. Her role was crucial, providing medical care to the occupants of the bunker, many of whom were suffering from the stress and strain of the collapsing Nazi regime. Flegel's experiences during these final days were harrowing, as she witnessed the despair and desperation of those around her, including high-ranking officials and their families. Captured by Soviet forces after Berlin fell, Flegel was detained and questioned, but later released. She gave one of the few first-hand accounts of the last days in the bunker, describing the atmosphere and the mindset of those trapped underground with Hitler. After the war, Erna Flegel lived a quiet life, her story offering a rare glimpse into the final days of the Third Reich. She lived until 2006, sharing her experiences with historians and providing valuable insights into a dark chapter of history. These individuals were the silent witnesses to some of the most significant and horrific events of the 20th century. While they were not the architects of Nazi policy, their proximity to Adolf Hitler tied their fates to one of history's darkest chapters. Their lives serve as a reminder of the complex human dimensions behind historical events. Please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. Thank you for watching.